Hi, we're back to Healthwise, and we're still talking about the very titillating topic of sex after 60 or after 50.
You said 50.
50. Sex is getting higher, huh? Sex after 50. Now, Doctor, you mentioned about, no, it's DJ who mentioned that, if you went through a heart attack and then you indulge in sex, then, the fear is always there at the back of your mind that it might just happen when you're doing the thing, because it really is a heart thumping activity. So, don't you think that that is one of the greatest causes of impotence among older partners?
Perhaps,
That, you know?
but if you put it in context, how long does it take? It's not even 10 minutes in most instances. There was that famous book by Irving Wallace, the 7 minutes. That's the average. And number two, the reason that some people actually do have a heart attack in that act, but when you listen to the news reports like that, that famous mayor of Manila who died, that vice presidential candidate in the United States who died, they weren't with their wives.
That's true.
And that's why after having most bypasses, most of the cardiovascular surgeons would say, it's okay, you do it at home with your wife.
But
But
not
when you go out, there's an
The anxiety level.
additional anxiety and nervousness, or you're gonna say excitement. So there's a lot more adrenaline pumping there, perhaps, because it's not supposed to be forbidden.
And then it's just, come to think of it, it's just such a short time.
Yeah,
but
it is.
It's only the
Like taking one flight of steps by yourself apart.
and then it's only the attendant concerns that
Yes.
that carries with it, no? That makes it complicated. Now, well, when you are at that age after 50, couples, especially wives, it's embarrassing to take that up with even your husband, like to say, "Hey, darling, it's okay. I mean, I like it. Can we do it?" I think it's never discussed in that way openly. Can something be done as to the openness of
Well,
couples?
it's always been said that in terms of good sexual relationship, communication, and patience. The problem sometimes with many of the men in our society is that their first sexual experience may be with a professional sex worker, and they watch these dirty movies where, these girls, they see a man and they start going, and in 2 seconds flat, they're having this toe curling climax. And so your husband expects you to behave like that guy. Hey, what's the matter? I flicked you here, I kissed you there, and then you're still dry. And you have to be able to communicate and say, hey, hold me a little bit more fondly, a little bit more kissing, because for a woman, it's the preliminaries that turn us
Yes,
on.
exactly. Yeah.
And it takes a little bit of patience. And if you don't tell your husband that, and if your husband is not patient enough to try to listen to you, and it doesn't become a good teamwork. And we're talking in terms of you get married at 22, 23, and you have a lifetime ahead of you. And if you, as a woman, many women will pretend.
Yes.
They also watch the same movie, and then they go, and there's, and I said, this was it. Ah.
Yeah.
But you have to be honest with each other.
So how do you encourage your patients, Doc, in terms of being more open about it?
You just have, that's the same way that I'm talking to you now.
In a casual way.
Yeah, in a casual way. Because as I say, as a doctor, if you don't open the topic, they'll skirt around it until you say, how's your sex life? Many women have a hysterectomy, and as time has gone on, it used to be, when I was in training, when you were 40, I take it off because it just becomes a problem for cancer. And now some of the randomized studies are saying you never remove an ovary unless it's diseased, because it continues to produce hormone, a little bit of estrogen and a lot of testosterone. And testosterone is also converted in the fatty tissue into estrogen. So it keeps women healthier when you leave it behind, whereas the risk of having ovarian cancer is less than one
It's
in
not that
probably
high.
10,000 women. When you leave the ovary behind. So we're reading to the point that you shouldn't remove the ovary, even if the woman is postmenopausal. At the very least, we should discuss these things with them. That there are a lot of advantages to leaving it behind.
And you know, we were really focusing on the sexual act, like you know, that the wife can talk to the husband about it and all. It could also be because of what we mentioned, that the diseases involved, that you know, the act cannot really be done just like that. Then maybe the talk could be how are the other alternatives that we can do to intercourse, because that is not, that the love act is not really equals the sexual act, right? And so
But there
what
are
are the
very
other
many
things?
ways of satisfying the sexual needs of both men and women, even without actual intercourse. A lot of fondling, a lot of manual and oral stimulation can bring them to climax just the same as
But then
having
again, the
sex.
fear of the woman, the fear of wives, that their husbands will say, "What kind of
And then it goes back to
what
the
kind of
relationship,
woman
the
are
original
you?"
relationship.
Yes.
Communication, patience, understanding. So if it's a bad relationship from the very start, how can you expect that in the menopause you will say, "Dear," you know, it will never work. It has to be from the very start, and that's why it's a very big teamwork from the very start of the marriage. And unfortunately, now most of the men are becoming more conscious about things like this.
So I'm beginning to have the impression, Doc, that the quality of the sex life is not necessarily affected by age, but it's more of mental health, physical health, and
There is
the
some
relationship.
effect, but the relationship has to be healthy from the very beginning. It doesn't become healthy after the menopause. If it's bad before, it will be worse.
Yes, that's true. That's true. And so, as what you said, communication is the
Communication.
heart of everything, not just.
You say over there, a little bit more to this side, a little bit higher, faster, slower.
And then women usually are
Are
very
shy about
yes.
saying,
You
yeah,
can't-
that part hurts. No, not there.
Yes.
They have to be able to say it.
And
men
I
should
think
also
Of course,
men-
the men should ask.
men
Is this
must
good?
yes, men must be sensitive
Yes.
towards that too, because you can just I like it and boop, that's it, I'm done.
And roll over.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, usually it's also the male's role in not just initiating, but in also trying to be sensitive throughout the process, no? So,
Leading.
not yes, or for you not to be not to be insulted or not to be insecure when the wife is the
Gives
lead,
a feedback,
is the
yes.
initiator, isn't it?
Yes.
Because usually
They should be flattered.
exactly, the husbands will say, "What's the matter with?" Maybe he does. She wants more, and I can't give it to her, or something like that. No, that's why the
Signals
wives
should be
are.
there. Small signals from the morning. You know, when you're going off to work, the signals are there. But you know, when you come home and your wife didn't even take a shower, and you know, okay, how can you say that?
So in other words, I'm not interested. Ladies and gentlemen, we will have a surprise guest towards the last portion of the show. He's around, so we are trying to snatch him and bring him over for his mature viewpoint. More on Healthwise when we come back.